Hey, welcome back to this mini lecture on freedom of the press, introductory concepts. Here are some origins of freedom of the press. It started mainly with the idea of the printing press. By having this new technology, thanks Gutenberg, created mass dissemination of text. This also is combined with the Enlightenment ideals that expanded information globally, and then you want to combine that with the American Revolution and the dissemination of pamphlets and papers that educated the colonists on British violation of their rights. All of this contributed to an environment where freedom of the press was important. Before we go on, what would you define the press as? In traditional forms, and back in the old days, that would be press would be conveyed through pamphlets, posters, newspapers, and magazines. Now, in the digital era and the broadcast era, there are new non-traditional forms like radio and television, and that's given way obviously to the internet. I've highlighted the main parts that deal with freedom of the press, but there's a constitutional amendment, which I'm sure most all of you know, the First Amendment, which deals with freedom of the press. And I'll just highlight the part that's the most relevant, again in bold. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of the press. So that gives constitutional protection against governmental infringements on freedom of the press. It's a constitutional amendment, and it's also really essential to democracy. Media can act as a fourth branch of government. In this sense, it's like an institution that influences the other three branches, which are legislative, executive, and judicial. So the media acts as a fourth branch to keep things in check. There are important benefits to individuals, societies, and the government by having freedom of the press. It helps people openly express ideas, advance collective knowledge and understanding, communicate with government representatives, allow for peaceful social change, and protect individual rights. All of these are obviously really important for a modern democratic society. However, there are some protections and limitations for speech, and it was intended to protect political discussion, which is great, but there are some limitations on freedom of the press. For example, the Alien Sedition Act of 1798, it outlawed government criticism, and also courts later on defined the scope of freedom of the press more narrowly. For example, clear and present danger. If there's a threat to national security, it's clear and present danger, that can be limited. If there's a libel, where someone's reputation can be ruined or someone can be caused harm, that can limit speech. And also there's protection against prior restraint. That's when you censor information before publication, which is a pretty big deal. And we'll talk about that later in another video. One big deal with the freedom of the press is the idea of confidential reporter sources. Various shield laws protect journalists from revealing their sources, so then that source can feel confident that they can share confidential information and they won't be outed. Reporters hold source confidentiality as essential to the existence of a free press. Sources are more likely to come forward if kept anonymous than if they're put on the record, especially if it's something very sensitive. Unfortunately, reporters do not have the same legal protections for sources as other professions, like doctors and lawyers, who have strong legal protections. And as an example, reporters can face contempt of court charges if they refuse to reveal a source, and even can result in jail time. That was freedom of the press, introductory concepts. Thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.